No Coins, Please by Gordon Korman. Chapter 11, Coins. The doctor held the x-ray up to the light for Newman and O'Reilly to view. I'm telling you, gentlemen, there is no key inside this boy. But we saw him swallow it, O'Reilly protested. It has to be in there. Well, it's not, said the doctor. Pure and simple. Newman turned to Artie. Kid, where's the key? Artie shrugged. Look, Artie, if you don't give us the key, we're not going to send you home with a briefcase and forget the whole thing. We're going to pry it open or shoot it open or blast it open. It's up to you. We don't care, but it's your case. Artie nodded in resignation. He reached into his mouth, drew out the key, wiped it carefully on his pants, and handed it over. The two agents stared. Newman hefted the attaché case onto the counter, unlocked it, and lifted the lid. The shocked silence that followed was punctuated only by the sound of a breaking glass as a passing nurse glanced at the stacks of bills and dropped the tray of test tubes. Oh, groaned the doctor, if that was mine, I would have swallowed the key. Dennis and Rob were sent back to the trailer park with their 5 campers. Artie went with Newman and O'Reilly and the confiscated attaché case to an elegant suite of the rooms in the agent's hotel. There he was confined to a room while the 2 FBI men tried to figure out what to do with him. In custody, one Arthur Geller, known as the Kid in the Tuxedo, sometimes called A, an 11-year-old Canadian citizen participating in the Junior Tours touring program. Certainly not the sort of thing the FBI would want to see go to trial. Their superiors would say, so you're telling us that this kid did all those things by himself? What do you think we are, stupid? The press would say. That's right, pick on an 11-year-old kid with gangsters and murderers roaming the streets. The public would say, aw, the poor little guy. The Canadian government would protest, the American government would apologize, Newman and O'Reilly would come out the villains, and everyone would forget that Artie had done anything wrong at all. He would immediately become a folk hero, probably with a host of imitators, hundreds of children following his trail to success. The implications were staggering. Besides, both Newman and O'Reilly felt that it wouldn't be right to throw the book at a bright little guy like Artie. Even though he had violated an incredible number of laws, his schemes had never really hurt anyone. After 5 hours of work without sleep, the 2 FBI men summoned Dennis and Rob to be with Artie when the Bureau's decision was handed down. The meeting took place around a long glass coffee table in the agent's suite. Now, Newman began, this is an official hearing which is completely off the record, which I suppose makes it an unofficial hearing. But in view of the extenuating circumstances and in order to avoid adverse publicity, he stopped and gazed at them honestly. Look, I'm not a diplomat. What I'm trying to say is that this whole thing would make everybody look really bad if too many people found out about it. He swallowed. Okay, the suspect is charged with the following. In New York, selling without a license, false advertising, contravention of FDA standards, and a violation of state sales tax laws. In Washington, D.C., running an illegal gaming house, misuse of public property, inciting to riot and littering at the Lake McConaughey State Recreation Area in Nebraska, defacing public property, bringing livestock into a state park without a permit, operating a dairy without proper health inspection, operating a store without a license, operating a commercial enterprise on state property without a permit, selling unpasteurized milk in unsanitary containers, involving minors in an illegal operation, and evasion of state taxes. In Denver, Colorado, appropriation of a private building without permission, subsequently causing approximately 2,800 cases of trespassing, performance of unauthorized alterations on said building, failure to pay electric, water, and telephone bills incurred, selling food and liquor without a license, price fixing, operating a discotheque without a license, violation of local fire marshal's laws, maintaining a salaried staff without withholding appropriate tax and Social Security deductions, violation of state advertising laws, littering, disturbing the peace, numerous counts of generally immoral business practices, and evasion of state taxes. In Las Vegas, Nevada, gambling underage, leaving the scene of a crime and attempting to flee the country. In addition to all this, there is total failure to pay federal income tax and responsibility for all damages to the Las Vegas hotel, gun hold, incurred in the events leading up to the capture, including the cost of 2 abdominal x-rays. Newman breathed deeply. Tim, Could you get me a glass of water, please? Dennis and Rob looked sick. Artie's face was impassive. Newman drank deeply and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Now, what we want to do is about halfway between justice and a cover-up. We're willing to forget, well, maybe not forget, but forgive the whole thing, provided you, Artie, make total restitution. That is, we'll take off federal income tax and state taxes, the price of every license and permit you didn't have, all the pertinent fines, and there are a few, your unpaid bills and reparations to the Hotel Gunhold and the Twister Pretzel Company. And, he held up his hand, before we give you a chance to respond to that, I'd better tell you that if you don't accept our terms, we intend to press charges to the fullest. Now, do we have a deal? Deal, said Artie so quickly that it startled Dennis and Rob. Good, said Newman, and it just so happens that we've worked it all out in advance. You owe us $149,764.04. He thrust a 15-page computer printout onto the table. Feel free to check out the calculations. Dennis leapt to his feet. Be reasonable. Where's Artie going to get $150,000? From his briefcase. That's where, Newman snapped right back. From under the table, he produced the attaché case and slammed it down in front of Artie. And here's his change. Newman slumped back in his chair, fuming. Now, he added, cooling off somewhat, in the interest of avoiding the biggest mess you've ever seen, and let me tell you, deportation hearings are a pain in the neck, I've decided to let you finish the tour. I'm assuming you've got the brains not to pull any more of this stuff. We'll be watching you. O'Reilly spoke up. Artie, I hope you realize how lucky you are that Agent Newman isn't pressing charges. Thank you very much, sir, said Artie. Rob allowed himself to breathe again. Thanks from me, too. Don't thank me, said Newman wearily. Just keep an eye on him from now on. Artie opened the attaché case and counted his money. There was $202.96. Between New York and Las Vegas, he had turned a net profit of $2.96. His usually impassive face evidenced slight distaste. Coins. For some reason, Rob expected that now things would be different for Ambulance Group, but everything was the same. When Dennis, Rob, and Artie left the hotel, the click they heard signified that yet another moment had been captured on film for Kevin's growing photo collection. Rob could only guess how this one would be cataloged. Roll 5,000, Exposure 1, Dennis, Rob, and Artie after dropping $150,000 in big FBI investigation. Howie complained that the city of Las Vegas neglected astronomy to a shameful degree. Sam got into a fight at the campground and started a 2-hour debate on human rights and liberties as pertaining to the game of Red Rover. Nick announced his intention of staying away from Sheldon for the next 7 years because of the broken mirror at the Hotel Gunhold. Sheldon borrowed a tape recorder and began work on a 90-minute cassette to mail to Pete Ogrennick in Finland. The tape was filled with endless, rapturous details about the adventures of Ambulance Group. Poor Pete, Rob thought, would probably be just as sick of hearing about Ambulance Group as Ambulance Group was of hearing about Pete. Dennis bought a large hat with a full-size operational roulette wheel on the crown. Nothing had changed. It was almost comforting. Artie seemed the least affected of anyone, as though he were not at all perturbed at the loss of the $150,000 and a close brush with federal agents. Rob smiled at the memory of the evening after the FBI incident. What did you want all that money for anyway? He asked Artie. The familiar shrug. Nothing. Nothing. Rob would never again be able to hear that word without flinching. Artie had put his mark on it forever. It was now, quite literally, nothing. Watching Kevin thread yet another film into his camera, Rob sat back with a sigh. In the distance, he could hear Butcher yelling at something or someone. Ambulance Group had seen neither hide nor hair of Butcher since the big night in Las Vegas. He seemed to be avoiding them. Dennis called his new circumstance establishing a rapport with the boss. Rob had to laugh. It looked as if this explosive tour, which had blown up in the face at frequent intervals, was going to die a peaceful death. At the Los Angeles trailer park, Dennis and Rob stayed up late, sitting around the campfire, endearing themselves to the lilies of the valley, two counselors who, according to Dennis, make all those other girls look like men. Dennis never gave up. In the ambulance tent, Nick was reciting the gross misfortunes that befell those who break mirrors. No one was interested, with the possible exception of Sheldon, who was getting scared. Artie sat up. According to my tour book, almost 7.5 million people live in and around Los Angeles. Yeah, prompted Sam expectantly. A city that size is bound to have its problems with crime, Artie went on thoughtfully. Its citizens deserve protection, both on the street and in the home. But all 5 listeners sat up and looked at Artie eagerly. But I'm under surveillance, which is a shame. We could help you, blurted Howie. We're not under surveillance. You mean you'd be willing to do this for me? Sure, chorused everybody. Well, I guess we're partners then, said Artie briskly. Tomorrow morning, Sheldon, you get the jelly.